वेदसमानिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहसिः
अनेन ऋतेन अहोरात्रां संददामि
अनेन ऋतेन अहोरात्रं संदधामि
वीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
गीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
तद्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु
तद्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु
अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्
अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ आप्यायन्तु अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणचक्षुः
ॐ आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणचक्षुः
श्रोत्रमाथः बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि
श्रोत्रमाथः बलम् इन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि
सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदाम्
सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम्
माहं ब्रह्म निरकुर्यात् मां ब्रह्म निरकरोत्
मां ब्रह्मो निरकुर्यात् मां ब्रह्मो निराकारो
अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणमेऽस्तु
अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणमेऽस्तु
धर्मस्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु
धर्मास्ते मुयि सन्तु ते मुयि सन्तु
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ पूर्णमादः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
ॐ पूर्णमादः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णम् उदच्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ सहनो भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु
ॐ सहनो भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु
सवीर्यं कर्वावहै
सवीर्यं कर्वावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शङ्गुरुनः शन्नो भवति हरिर्मा
ॐ शङ्गमित्रः शङ्गरुः प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मोऽसि
त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
गीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
रीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
तद्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु
तद्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु
अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम्
अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम्
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृण्वाम देवा
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृण्वां देवा
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः
भद्रं पश्येम अक्षुभिर्ययुत्राः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः पुष्टवांशतनूभिः
श्रीरयाङ्गैः पुष्टवां सतनुभिः
दशेम देवहितं यथायुः
श्रशेम देवगीतं यतायुः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
आज আমাদের ব্রহ্মোপলব্ধি 694তম পর্ব। Today we are going to discuss 694th sequence of realization of Supreme. Today is 19th of May 2019. The topic that today we are going to cover is the honey and the nectar of divine realization. The very sages have talked about God being so sweet. Idam pitri madutam chyati vacha svadihi svadihi mudraya vardhana rasvaha chano amritam martu bhojana tam ed Tukayo Tanayayo Rita. The meaning of this is the sage, the very sage is offering his words of prayer to the Supreme by saying that you are sweetest of all sweet things in the world. I invoke you with your sweetness like the most sweet honey in the world. You have made the world sweet such that the creatures want to stay in the world. The creatures consider the life as sweet. And you have been continuously providing us with the sweetness. Each moment is creating an aspiration of a sweeter moment to the next. You are so widely dispersed in different forms, in different conditions, with different identities. However, your vision is sweet, your touch is sweet, your words are sweet, your thoughts are sweet. Aspiring you is sweetness, and we experience you within and without as an attraction of sweetness. That's your divine form, and that's your empirical form as well. The sage is offering his consecration to God by saying that this sweetness be there everywhere in my mind, in other minds. Ida Petri Maruta Vichyate Vachaha Swadi Swadi. Whoever has tasted your spirit has understood that content of sweetness in it. However, whatever understanding of that sweetness has been made so far, you are even more sweeter. You are always sweeter than that. The sage is saying that our ancestors, those who have witnessed you, those who have experienced you before, those who had the opportunity to have a realization of yours before, the time eternal past, those who have experienced you through their vision, observation, through their aspirations, through their understanding within the mind and heart, through their continuous process of realization, they have realized, they had the understanding, they have put across the concept that you are sweet, you had exposed your sweetness to them, and I invoke you for that sweetness and even more of yours in time to come. Now here we understand the sages are aspiring for the goodness of God. The goodness of God they are aspiring for. Now on the other hand, there is another realization of sages wherein the sage is mentioning that despite this goodness, the divine aspiration of this goodness is there, but again, the goodness we can experience only when we have identified him in a different form, in a form that is dear to him. Yad achivat, yad anubhyaha anuchva, yasmin lokaha nihita lokinacha, tateta taksharam brahma, saha prana tatu vapa manaha, tateta satyam tat amritam, tad vedatam sammo vidhi madhutma. That soul, that balanced personality, that supreme personality, who reveals himself through this creation and takes part in the activities of the creation, and the person identified with a part, a fragment of this visible world. At the same time, the person goes beyond the spectrum of visibility, beyond the contents of the fragment, and the fragment itself reveals and has got the potential to reveal continuously the fullness, the wholeness. The fragment does not remain a fragment alone. The fragment is fragment in a form, but at the same time, when the context arises, when the situation arises, when that time comes, the fragment continues to get associated and absorbed with that infinite spectrum of the divine spirit. The same spirit is present in everywhere. The sage has identified that yat achimata tanuva anuja. When we kindle the fires in a piece of log, the fire continues to burn unless there is an obstruction to the process of fire, number one, and unless the log of wood exhausts its potential to burn as a fire through a flame. These two things remaining uncertain, the certainty is the potential of fire within that log of wood. The piece of wood has got the potential to burn into fire and give a flame, give an illumination, but it doesn't unless there is the help of kindling is there. Whereas to kindle it to, whereas to burn it to provide that fire, unleash that fire from within. Now the sage is aspiring to become that log of wood, and again at the same time inviting God to light that log of wood so that it can kindle, so that it can have the burning, so that it can give the illumination, so that it can continue to provide with the flame, so that it can continue to remain present in the context of the creation, to offer its illumination, to offer its energy, to offer its heat to the global system. That's why the sage is mentioning, Yashmin lokaha nihita lakinaha. Wherever there is a human presence, and within the human presence you are present, so wherever there is a person, a life remains in any form, you are there present within the life, you are there present invisibly inside the life, you are there present with the life, where the aspiration for you is present in the life. If the life has held the aspiration, has developed the aspiration, then only your presence is revealed in that life. If the life does not have the aspiration, does not want to develop that aspiration, then you are absent in that life apparently. Though you are never absent from any life, any creation, you are always present in all lives, all creations of this universe, but at the same time, your presence is revealed only through the presence understood through invocation of yours, through inviting you in the life and through absorbing you, through accepting you with a devotion in the life. That's why the sage is mentioning that one has to become like a potential log, a potential burning instrument, which can burn, which can give flame, which can give light, which can continue to have a illumination, which can have a burning in presence of in the global context, and at the same time, this can remain in its own form wherever it's placed in the world in a global context. In the time frame, in the space frame, both ways, it's present now in the global context, and within the global context, it can continue to give its best out of it. How does it give? The sage is asking a question, raising an issue. How can it give? How does it give? Unless it's got an attraction for the life, unless the life has got an inherent attraction for remaining and growing in the creation, how can the life give illumination? Illumination comes from the life where there is a continuous attraction of the life to grow further, to become superior in the next phase, superior to the previous one, the previous existence. A continuous improvement in life, continuous betterment of the understanding, continuous enlargement of the realization, continuous broadening of the periphery and the boundary of understanding. That happens only when we are dedicated to the Spirit of God, Spirit of the Supreme. And the sage has understood that whenever we have understood the sweetness of His presence, if we have understood the sweetness of His appearance, sweetness of His vision, sweetness of His touch, sweetness of His presence, sweetness of His consciousness in the world, then only we get the aspiration to grow further, to grow divine in our life. And that's why it said that in that context, in that case only we can put ourselves, offer ourselves to act as a piece of log which can burn and which can give a flame, which can help divine in the cause of divine's appearance, to fulfill the cause of divine's appearance in the world by giving the illumination, by giving the light and energy to the global system in the form, in the way that the life can offer this light in his or her own chosen way. That's why it's saying, Tateta Daksharam Brahma Saprana Tatuho Bhakamana. When we understand the Supreme in ourselves, when we realize the Supreme presence of Supreme in ourselves, the presence of Supreme is understood through words, through our mental presence, through the conscious presence of Him within ourselves. If we look at this concept from biological point of view, we find that there is a situational response system in our being. Every human person has got a command and control system, functional control system, situational response system. The central nervous system, brain and its peripheries, perform in the same way. The command and control system is a coordination which is governed and guided by the brain and coordinated through its own connected organs, the nervous system spread out throughout the body. How does it function? Any response, any stimuli comes anywhere in the system, anywhere in the body, in the living system. It's transmitted to the central organ, and the central organ has got the functional decision making and it responds through the functional mode. For example, any cause of harm to any part of the body, hand or leg, or any part of the body, any cause which is visualized, which is perceived by the nervous system, the stimuli, and then immediately the stimuli comes to the central system and it commands the peripheries to respond. First of all, respond in a defensive manner, then probably respond in a manner which is a quasi-defensive and quasi-permanence or neutral, and then this defensive or quasi-permanence or neutral position takes the person away from the cause of, or the origin of the cause, or the context from where this stimuli are arising. So the central system, the command and control, has got absolute authority over the entire body system. The sage is making a comment saying that in this universe, if we have endowed ourselves to God, then we are within this central command and control system. A dedicated person comes under the command and control system. Any stimuli in that mind, any stimuli in that life, it reaches the central system immediately, and then automatically there is an invisible command and control that occurs through the invisible global system, the universal system. That's how the cosmic spirit works. This works through the herbs, shrubs, trees, animals, plants. This works through human beings. This works through other organisms. This works in air, in water, on soil. This works in Antariksh, the media. This works in the sky, the Dahar, the Akash Brahma, the Dahar Brahma. This works in the absolute sky. This works in a small sky within ourselves, small sky in between, and small sky of our existence everywhere. This works everywhere. meaning the divine presence is connected with us when we are connected with the divine presence. The sage is mentioning, like your biological system of command and control, there is a universal system of command and control. There is a natural system of command and control. There is a cosmic system of command and control. The cosmic system of command and control is just a reflection of the universal system of command and control. The natural system is a part of the cosmic system which has got the same attributes of getting associated, connected with the central command in accordance, and the human body, human entities can also join in that through our endowment to God, in the Spirit of God. The moment we are endowed to the Spirit of God, we have given unto our spirit to the Divine Spirit, and then we are connected to any stimuli in us that's immediately communicated to the central system. This is what is known as the command and control system, and for approach is always invisible, and the connections is always invisible, as it is occurring in our human body also biologically. The functional attributes are all invisible through the process which are unidentified so far, through the nodes and functional centers which activate, but then how does it? It's unidentified so far. The sage is mentioning that the invisible spirit acts through, and this invisible spirit is actually connecting and coordinating the global and the cosmic system. The other one is a functional attribute. In the functional attribute, when we are connected in the command and control system, the functional attributes come in our day-to-day activities. It's an empirical part of the whole. The empirical part of the whole is something which we experience on a day-to-day basis in our work situation, in our mental field, in our thoughts, in our activities, in our personal activities, in our collective activities, in our social activities, in our functional activities. In any domain of our activity, we are connected through these functional attributes. And the functional attributes are then connected in an organic manner. Like in human system, it's connected in an organic manner. An inflict on a finger of the hand is actually responded through the hand only by the finger. And it's not responded through the leg, it's not responded through the hairs of head. It's responded through the same organ where the inflict is there. The same way, the functional attributes which we find, the sages have identified that this is always in the same manner. Wherever this inflict is there or wherever there is a cry, there only the response comes, and the response comes squarely for that. An endowed person, a person dedicated to the Spirit of God, receives this is a kind of, is a kind of boon of God, is a kind of gift of God, is a kind of gift of the Supreme, which is automatically available at that point of time when there is an inflict or there is a problem or there is a cause arising for that. Then the third one comes the situational response system. It varies from situation to situation. For the same person, for the same group of people, it varies from one situation to the other. Situational response system could be autonomous, could be conscious. Autonomous is something which no one has predicted before or which no one has understood before. And only when the situation completes, only when the response is completed, then only the person comes to an understanding of what has happened. Prior to that, the person doesn't even understand what's going to happen. Situational response system is a unique gift of God. And in this situational response system, wherever there is a situation, even if it is all of a sudden some kind of even accidental, the situational response system occurs immediately for a person who is endowed to God, who is gifted to God in his or her own spirit. And the situational response system, like in our biological system, it has got an autonomous response, it has got a conscious response. Now, autonomous response is something in our human system, human body, wherein there are faculties within the human body, there are organic texture, organic arrangements in the human body, which have got the power, authority and the right and the capacity to respond based on the situations, based on the occurrence of the situation, based on the nature of the situation, based on the kind of situation, magnitude of the situation, magnitude of the positive or negative things in the situation. It responds in accordance. The situation response system now acts through the autonomous method. This is a structured method. Autonomous is a structured method which is there given in the system, in the human system. In our human system, we have got the words and mind. Baka mana is said, Brahma sa prana taduho baka mana. Like in our, there is a network of our words and mind, and in the network of words and mind, we can respond through the words, through the mental makeup and the mental frame, and the mind can induce the organs to act accordingly, sometimes act in response against, sometimes act in response in favor, and sometimes acts in response to the neutrality of the situation. Now this is what the mind and the words, mind and the vaka and manaha, they induce the person to go forward, to move forward. The sage is mentioning the same kind of arrangement is there in our cosmic system, our connection with the divine, with God. And our connection with God, how do we connect through our mind and through our words? Our mind and our words, that's what is the purpose of our meditation. When a person is meditating upon, a person is trying to concentrate on, a person is trying to have an idea and a realization of the Supreme God within, and the person gradually develops a connection with the mind, with the Supreme Mind, the Divine Consciousness, the Divine Spirit. And if that happens, then the mind of the person is actually connected with the mind of the Supreme. This is what has been mentioned by our sages. Like, it's an infinite ocean of spirit, and in the ocean of spirit, if somebody gets deluged in, and the person is now a part of that ocean of spirit. And that ocean of spirit is what is invisibly connected with us and connected with all of us, all creatures, all regulations, all empirical lives in this world. And in this ocean of spirit, what we find is our specific identity. Whenever we have the knowledge of ourselves, we find the specific identity. Whenever we lose the knowledge of ourselves and try to have the knowledge of the Supreme, then our individual forms get deluged in the form of the Supreme, and we are now merged as a single entity, and that is what is the invisible ocean of consciousness. And in that invisible ocean of consciousness, as the sage has perceived and realized, that this is a single entity, this becomes a single entity, wherever there is no difference, when there is no disconnect between. The differences and the disconnected get removed, get reduced to zero, and therefore they are omnipresent. The spirit is omnipresent, the divine spirit is omnipresent. So how does it occur? The autonomous response is always then connected with the Supreme Spirit, and the Supreme Spirit takes the position of the individual empirical spirit, the empirical form, and anything of this empirical form's mind works for, any direction that it works to, any ways that it wants to respond to, is again now corrected by the Supreme Spirit immediately before it occurs. So how does it occur? It occurs as a kind of preemptive, as a kind of prior to action, as a kind of prior to action mental framework, and in that the mental framework is tuned to the Divine Spirit, and that then only the work becomes a divine work. The work is now converted to a divine work. The work is now a work of God, work for God, work by God. So then the work then becomes a work of divine in nature, and this work should be harmless. This work cannot cause a harm to anyone. This work cannot cause a harm to the world, to the global system, to the cosmic system. This is how the cosmic spirit works in our individual self, and the sage is mentioning that this autonomous response is always there inbuilt in every mind, every consciousness of the devotee. The person who is a devotee who has become, the person who has become a devotee, who have actually developed the devotion within, this person has got that kind of autonomous response present within. And for an autonomous response, it's like the God has held the hand of the person always, so that the person doesn't, doesn't go beyond the limits prescribed for that life. And therefore the life is endowed with the Divine Spirit always, and it works and acts within the periphery of the Divine Spirit. And the Divine Spirit acts in a form, in a way that always nourishes, that always enriches the global system, the cosmic system. This is why the sage is mentioning in Madhu, honey, the nectar of life. Why this nectar of life? Because the spirit, when it's present in us, in the human being, in the spirit of human being, in the mind of human being, it's always sweet. Why it's sweet? Because it's the sweetness of the touch of God. It's the sweetness of the presence of God. It's the sweetness of the presence of God's ambience within. And that sweetness takes the life forward towards the Divine Spirit and towards making things which are close to the Divine Spirit, making things which are rhythmic to the Divine Spirit, making things which are induced to the Divine Consciousness and which are within the aura of divinity. And then the final one, another one is there after this autonomous response system. There is again a conscious response system. A conscious response system, like in our empirical life, what we know, that choice-based response. A choice-based response, like a human being has got the right and the capacity to respond to external stimuli in a chosen way. Like this choice comes from the character, the behavior of the person, from the ancestral attributes which are there. Now we define it through genealogical attributes. Whatever attributes are present in the person responds in that same manner based on the basic attributes, the fundamental attributes. The attributes are genealogically explained, or attributes are functionally explained, physiologically explained, or explained through physiochemical methods. Now, conscious response is one wherein we take the decision for the action on our own. And this mind is an empirical mind. It is a worldly mind. Parthiva manaha. The Parthiva manaha, the worldly mind, it takes a call. Whatever be the features of the stimuli, the response to that stimuli, the response to that series of stimulus, it occurs. It occurs based on the spirit and based on the guidance offered by the empirical mind. Now this conscious spirit or the conscious response is conscious to the extent human consciousness has earned the consciousness from this cosmic source, from this universal source. Basically it's a human consciousness limited to the global or the empirical situations. So it's a limited smallness of man, limited smallness of a person, and the smallness is always seeking the personal context, the benefits of the personal context, the satisfaction of the personal context, the satisfaction from empirical point of view, the satisfaction and enjoyment from empirical point of view. And there are a lot of examples given by our scriptures wherein it's been mentioned that this kind of satisfaction which we experience for, this satisfaction is very temporary. This bounces back. This gives back to us something which is not healthy, which is not palatable for our life. It brings this satisfaction momentarily, brings in certain things which are evils for life, which are causes for sorrow in life in future, and it is a kind of seeding for that causes of sorrow. It is a kind of seeding for that future evils of life. It is a seeding for invocation and inviting the evils in life for the future. Therefore, the sage is saying that conscious response, if you have to have, then you have to earn the consciousness of the Supreme. First, you try to earn the consciousness of Supreme by giving away whatever you have whatever you have generated, whatever you have developed within yourself, you have experienced within yourself, you give it up. You give it up, you donate that, you sacrifice that. And through that, you invite something which is not yours, but become yours. You invite something which is not a small, but takes a small position, though it is not small. The infinite can take a small finite position also. This point, we know that in our mathematical science, there was a debate on the finite and infinitude. What is the difference between the finite and the infinite? And then finally, Isaac Newton came to a conclusion that finite is just a small segment of the infinite. If we have to calculate the infinite, which we can't do, the infinite is the sum total of all finites plus something which is unidentified. That's the kind of conclusion which Isaac Newton in Principia Mathematica, he came to that, and he observed that this conclusion, and so far this conclusion remains. This conclusion has been a valid conclusion even today. That means the infinite is something which is unpredictable, which we don't know, which we can't know, which nobody knows, which nobody can know. The infinite is something which has got a revealed portion. Now the infinite's revealed portion is a fragment. That fragment is a finite. So whatever we find in this world, whatever we visualize in this world, whatever we come across in this world, is a fragment of the infinite presence of the Supreme, and that fragment is what we call a real to us. It is real because we can perceive this through our senses, through our organs, through our biological methods, through our added instruments. We support the biological methods to understand things and to get across with the things available in this cosmic presence. And that is also, the vastness of this cosmic presence is also a small fragment. So at a time, there was a time when we knew that we have only one sun in the sky. Now we have come to know, no, it is not only one sun in the sky. We have got millions of suns. In our Vedas, we have come across with verses like Sahasra Surya, thousands of suns. This concept is there in the Vedas. So our Indian sages such an ancient period, they had that concept that thousands of suns are there. And what does it reveal? It reveals a small fragment of this cosmic presence of the Supreme who is infinite. So the infinite, the portion that we have come to know, or we want to know, we have endorsed ourselves for that finite is just a small fragment of the infinite. And so conscious response within the finite region. Therefore, it's a very small portion of the known world. It's a very small portion of the known world that we can offer responses to. And the responses, the nature of the responses depend on the way that we have tuned ourselves to respond in an external stimuli. Now there are variants. For example, the sage has given an example of two things. One is a person who is tuned to the world, the other one is a person who is tuned to the Supreme. A person, Davino Purushuloke Karaksha Shara Evacha. That means there are two different types of the understanding of the world. One is this world, which is a visible empirical world. The other one is an invisible, eternal world. Now this empirical world this visible empirical world is just a fragment of that eternal, invisible world. Is a part of that, is a part of the whole. The whole is the invisible and the part is the visible. We live in the part. The human being lives in the part. The creatures live in the part. Being in the part, we consider the part as a whole. That's the delusion that we have. The part we consider as a whole. In our concept, when we find that stellar distances from our Earth system, the distances of stellar objects, for example, the stars, faraway stars, there are stars which are reachable in million light years from us. Million light years means the movement of light, such a huge speed per second, per minute, per hour, per day, per month, per year. This movement of light in 1 year is 1 year. This kind of millions of years. After that, we reach out to a star with very distant star, and that distant star is also blinking. The light that it has given rise to, it has released, which comes to us, comes to our visibility, was emitted by that star millions of light years ago. So that existed millions of light years before, that's likely to exist millions of light years after. That's the concept of eternity. That's the concept of the Supreme. That's the concept of wholeness. Now, the implicate order that we have created in this universe is a fragment of the wholeness. Therefore, the sage is telling that you are connected to the whole, but you are living in the part. You are having your thoughts and activities in the part, in the fragment. So, what is the best way to deliver? What is the best way to live a life? Try to extract the honey of life. Try to extract the honey of things from life. Try to extract the honey of the presence of God in life through your delighted contribution to the world. So when the work is conducted, when the work is done, what is the principle of work? The principle of work is to be the work as an endowed to God, the work which is dedicated to God. So whatever work we are given with, whatever work we get from this world, the work if we dedicate, if we endow it to the Divine Spirit, then the work becomes the work of the divinity, work of God. That's why the sage is mentioning here. Mana mahanta muto mana avarka, mana ukshanta muto mana ukshita, mana vadihi pitaram muto mataram, mano priyastannoho rudro ridisho. Is saying that when I accept you in my consciousness, I accept you as my father, as my mother, as my dear person, as a person whom I am acquainted with, as a person whom I think I know. But when I discover that whatever I have thought about you, that's just a fragment of yours, then I consider you as placed in the vastness of yours, and that vastness of yours is your true spirit. Then what happens is, the continuum of consciousness that I have developed with you, that continuum of consciousness is a consciousness which is endowed to your spirit and embraced by you in the human spirit. So it's both ways. Therefore, I am identifying a kind of relationship with you, a kind of connection with you, and through this relationship or a connection with you, I try to become a part of that infinite, a part of that infinite consciousness, and being a part of that infinite consciousness, I will be in a position to deliver things which are the conscious choice of yours. So when we are giving a conscious response, instead of having the autonomous response, when we are having the conscious response has got two types. One is the conscious response of empirical variety, the other one is the conscious response of eternal variety. A conscious response of empirical variety is word for word, deed for deed, is tit for tat. That's the conscious response of empirical variety. The conscious response of eternal variety is different. It considers every incident, everything from a larger perspective, holistic perspective, from the perspective of the wholeness, from the perspective of the infinite existence of that Supreme, and considers that everything that we come across with is a part of that infinite existence, and so the present impulse that has arrived to me is actually a part of that. Therefore I have to respond in a manner that doesn't affect that spirit of the divinity, spirit of God. Therefore, that's a better way of living, and then only we come across with it. We have the capacity, and we are endowed with the taste of honey of that divine presence. How do we taste the honey of divine presence? When we are tuned to Him, when we are connected to Him, when we are connected to the Spirit of God, then only we are in a position to taste the honey of the divine Spirit. Now here, the sage is mentioning one of a method. Dhanuhu Gritva Upanishadam Mahastram Sharangi Upanishada Shitam Sandhya Ayam Tadabhavavatena Chetasha Lakshanta Aksharam Eva Sarno Vidhi. And how to achieve it? Pranamaha Dhanuhu Sharaha Hi Atmaha Brahma Tatlakha Uchate Apramatena Buddhavam Sharavat Tanmaya Bhavet. Sharavat Tanmaya Bhavet. Now the sage is giving an art of getting connected to God. He is mentioning an art of getting connected to God. What is that art? Now art is telling, Dhanu Gritva, you are assume that you are in a warfare of this life, the war of life, and in the war of life, you need a weapon to win the war. What is that weapon? The weapon here is that Pranava, Om, a mantra, that was, which connects you to God. That was, that word, that mantra, that rika, which connects you to the Spirit of God. And that connection with the Spirit of God continues. Why does it? Because when we have chosen the path of this divinity in the context of the world, then we are actually inviting the infinite presence within the boundaries of finite. So it's a kind of infinite drawn into the boundary of finite. It's a kind of merging between the fragment and the whole. A fragment and the whole is getting merged. How does it merge? So through our, that's why the sage is mentioning Shadava Tanmaya. Tanmaya. Tanmaya is Tatmaya. Tanmaya. Tatmaya is Tanmaya. The sage is telling you become Tatmaya. Tatmaya is you become you. Sri Ramakrishna had said Tuhu Tuhu. It said Hamba Hamba. Finally it converts to Tuhu Tuhu. When it was in life, it was Hamba Hamba. And when the chord was made into the chord of that work for our, when it used for creating a vibration, and then in the vibration which is used for cotton work, which is used for segregating cotton clusters from cotton elements from cotton clusters, the sound that it gives is a Tuhu Tuhu. Tuhu is you. It is not me, but thou. Vivekananda had coined this from this story. He had coined the word not me, but thou. It's not I, but it's you. How does it happen? It happens only when we are Tatmaya, Tanmaya. Shadavat Tanmaya is what? We are continuously merged in the spirit of yours. Shadavat is what? Is a continuity, a flow of continuity. A fluid which is continuously poured from upper portion to lower. A fluid which is poured from upper to lower is not a discrete, it's a continuous. There is no cut apart in between. There is no break in between. Shadavat Tanmaya is a unbroken continuity, undistracted continuity of the flow of consciousness. And in that we are invoking, we are inviting, we are aspiring in whatever manner, in whatever ways we can, in our thoughts, in our belief, in our aspiration. We try to get connected with Him, and the moment we get connected with Him, it is a Tat-maya, Tanmaya. And if it is a continuous, then it becomes Sharavat Tanmaya. That's why he is saying that you pick up some instrument. That instrument is a weapon, and you have that weapon in your hold, and then you use the weapon. The weapon here is mentioned, Pranamaha, Gritva. What is that you are undertaking? You are accepting a word of God, the name of God in any form. Pranamaha is Om, it's a dhani, it's a revelation through words, it's a revelation through a spiritual vibration. It can have in any form, it can be used in any form. Instead of this single word, it can have a multiple words in a sentence or even in multiple sentences. And through that, we get connected with the Divine, we get connected with the Supreme, and whenever we are connected with the Supreme, in a continuous manner, we are in a Sharavat, Tat-maya, Tanmaya condition. And that's why it is mentioning here, you be Sharavat Tanmaya. Sharavat Tanmaya, then Apramattena Buddhavamash. Now, Brahma Tat Laksham Ucha. What is the purpose of this Sharavat Tanmaya? What is our aim? What is our target? The purpose, the aim, the target is to reach the consciousness of Brahma, is to reach the consciousness of the Supreme. We want to reach out to the consciousness of the Supreme. Therefore, the conscious response, which the sages mentioned, that conscious response, autonomous response is there, automatically is there, and then that acts in a manner which is inbuilt in, which is inbuilt in, that is, it cannot be changed. What you can change is your conscious response you can change. So where is the source? The source is in our consciousness. The response that we will be making to the world or the thing that we will create in the world, it depends on our consciousness. The way we develop our consciousness, we build our consciousness, we make our consciousness grow and tune to the divine consciousness. Now how can we get it tuned to the divine consciousness? That's what is the clue given by the art of doing that is given by the sage is mentioning. Pranavaha nanu sharaha atamaha brahma tad laksham uchyate. So Atama, the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman who is seated within in the form of the Atman, and that Atman we want to reach out to, and that Atman if we understand, we realize the Atman, then we realize the Supreme behind. And the Supreme is present in us in the form of the Atman. And with this mantra, with this word which we have got from Him only, this word which we have received from the divine sources, we have received from our Shastras, we have received from our scriptures, from the divine sources, from the words of people, and that is what is an instrument which helps us to grow further. And the sage is mentioning here, Yasmin dau prithivi antariksham cha utam manaha sa pranai cha sarvai tam eva ekam janataha atmanam anyaha vacho vimuchanta amritasya esho setu. So how does it occur? Idan pitrai marutam vichyati bachaha swadihi rudraya vardhanam rasvaha chano amritam sarvato bhujanam martam tamena tukaya tanaraya mula madhura. Now that madhu, that honey, we derive, we get in touch, we can find out the honey of life, There is a beautiful story given in one of the Upanishads in a part of the Aranya, Giridharnaka. That is, the story is given like this. A person is traveling inside the forest and he has to cross the forest before it is, the day ends. So he is moving faster. Now all of a sudden he hears the hound of a tiger and therefore he is scared. Now he is rushing forward for a rescue. He wants to, get a tree where he can rise up, which the tiger can't. That is his perception. So he rushes forward and found that there is a tree which is slightly slanted. It's not a upright tree, but it's slightly bent to the ground. And then he quickly goes above the tree. He rises to the tree, to the upper branch of the tree, and he finds the tree is bent towards the other side. He finds there is a pool of water, and therefore he tries to go beyond the reach of the tiger. So he goes to the smaller branches of the tree, and then the branch that he had held, which was a thin branch, and it got broken, and he had a condition like he is now obstructed by a bush inside the tree, and he is upside down. His leg upwards, his head downwards, but he survives. And he finds the tiger has come. He's there at the base of the tree. Tiger is targeting him, but he is beyond the reach of the tiger. So he is safe from tiger. But the branch that he had held, the branch is broken. So he is now upside down. But he is held tight by the bushes there. And his head is down. And almost close to the riverbed, meaning the waterbed, is a marshy water full of all dirty things. And when he looks at it, he finds there are a lot of snakes are there with their hood up, and they are about to catch him but can't catch him. So he has got a tiger on the land and the snakes there to chase him. They are in the marshy water. And meanwhile, what had happened when the branch of the tree had broken? It had honeybees, a bunch of honeybees. They came out of their store and they started biting the person. The person is now continuously getting beaten by those honeybees. There's a tiger on the shore. There are snakes there to chase him. This is his condition, but there is a wonder. The wonder is he is upside down, and from the top, the honeybees had accumulated honey in their honeycomb, and from there honey starts dropping down, and surprisingly it falls on his lip and he tastes the honey of life. This is what is a kind of story, is a human condition. To describe the human condition, a powerful sage has mentioned this, is done by one of the disciples of Jagavalka and supported by Jagavalka in that. This is how the story has been crafted, and the story says, even after all these horrors of life, the honey that sprints down, that drops down and touches the lip of the person is actually enjoyed by the person. The sage is not mentioning about that honey. This honey is the honey of life, honey of the mortality, the honey of empiricity. This honey brings along a lot of sufferings, sorrows, problems, perils of life. The sage has been mentioning about a different kind of honey. That's nectar. That's the honey of divine presence, divine spirit. That honey is harmless. This honey is harmful. This honey which this upside down man is experiencing, is tasting, is a result of the disaster of his life. Even when there is a disaster, the nature is providing us with something which is sweet and which retains the life in this nature. The nature gives us something. God has made an arrangement in such a fashion that whatever be your context and condition, even in disaster in life, there is a honey of life. That honey of life makes the life alive. There is a condition like, when Sharadama, goddess Sharada, after Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, is leaving the human world. Now she was in a mood to give up the existence. And then what happened is, she needed a bonding, some kind of bonding, some kind of binding, a binding through some rational bonding, which would hold her back, which would make her always think about and confine her within the limits of this worldly context. Radhu was that. Radhu Radharani was actually that. She was actually a problem figure of her brother's house, and this problem figure is refused to her, taken shelter in her. As she has given shelter to this problem figure, she has to take care. If she has to take care, then she has to be there with them, think of them, do things for them, tell others also, close disciples to do things for them. And that's how she was connected with this worldly affairs, empirical things, and the empirical things could hold her back also. If it were disconnected, if Radhu was disconnected, if there was no Radhu, then it would have been very, very difficult to have Sharada Devi post Sri Ramakrishna's leaving the human abode. That is a kind of empirical connection. That is a kind of empirical connection which binds the divine soul on this surface of earth in the context of the world system. Now the sage is here mentioning about honey. She did not have honey in that. For her it was a responsibility to allow Radhu to taste the honey of life. So she was busy in giving Radhu that context to taste the honey of life, the spirit of life, the enjoyment for life, the growth matrices for life, the reasons to have a delightful life, the ways to have a delightful life, the methods, the arrangements to get a delightful livelihood, delightful life. Now this is what had happened with them in that particular context. Now what has happened here, the sages are mentioning that enjoy that spirit of divinity, spirit of God, experience that spirit of God, experience that honey of divinity, and imagine that you are a small fragment, you are placed in the wholesome, the horizon, that entire eternity is there, and you are just a fragment in that eternity, but you are connected with that eternity. You are connected with the Supreme. The moment you understand that you are connected with the Supreme, you have that faith, and also you have the faith in the Supreme, the devotion now grows. With the devotion having grown in an individual, the individual gets the spirit in touch of the Spirit of God, and The moment you are in touch with the Spirit of God, the conscious response now doesn't limit itself to the empirical consciousness. It transforms to the divine consciousness. So the conscious response becomes a response from a divine entity or a divine identity, and that conscious response makes the life a better of life, a life that enjoys the sweetness of God's presence, a life that grows towards the sweetness of God's presence, a life that is in connection with the spirit of divinity, a life that enjoys or wants to enjoy the spirit of divinity, a life that always in touch with Sharavat Tanmaya, Sharavat, always without any kind of disconnect, without any kind of disconnection, without any kind of destruction, without any kind of cutting off, any kind of breaking off from the flow of the Spirit of God, and Tat Maya, Tanmaya, the life which is in mind, in soul, in heart, is deluged in, always full of the thoughts of God, the ideas of God, the aspirations of God, the consciousness of God, the Spirit of God. That's what the sage is inviting here. That's why the sage is saying, Idam Pitrai Marutam Uchyati Vachaha Swadihi Swadihi Rudraya Vardhanam Rasvama Charno Amrita Marta Bhujanam Tamani Tukayo Tanayo Mulam Madhuram. That madhu, that honey of the divine spirit, let it spread across to all the minds who are aspiring for the divine presence. Pray to God for that spirit of that divine honey to every mind who are aspiring to have the divine realization. Oh, that's it. Pratishtita Nami Bachi Pratishtita
Om Bhagme Manosi Pratishtita Mano Me Vachi Pratishtita
Avihi Avihi Medhi
Avihi Avihi Medhi
Vidasyamanistaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasiha
Vedasvamanistaha Srutam Me Ma Prahasiha
Anena Ritena Auratra Sangdadhami
Anena Dhirena Avratham Sangdadhami
Adhitam Vadishwami Satam Vadishwami
Ritam Vadiswami Satyam Vadiswami
Tadmam Avatu Tadvakaram Avatu
Tatmam Avotu Tadvaktaram Avotu
Avatu Mam Avatu Vakaram Avatu Vakaram
Avotu Mam Avotu Bhaktaram Avotu Bhaktaram
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Apayantu Mamangani Bhaprana Chakshu
Om Apayantu Mama Angani Vak
श्रोत्रमात्रः बलम् इन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि
श्रोत्रमात्रः बलम् इन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि
सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदम्
सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम्
माहं ब्रह्म निरकुर्यात् मा ब्रह्म निरकरोत्
माहं ब्रह्म निरकुर्यात् माम ब्रह्म निराकरोत्
अनिरकरणमस्तु अनिरकरणमेऽस्तु
अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणमेऽस्तु
नमस्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु
धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ पूर्णमादः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
ॐ पूर्णमादः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ सहनोऽवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु
ॐ सहनवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु
सवीर्यं करवावहै
सह वीर्यं करवावहै
तेजस्विनो अधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनो अधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शरणमित्रः शम्भुरुनः शम्भवति हरिओमः
ॐ शङ्गमित्रः शङ्गरुणः शङ्गभवति हरियमः
शं इन्द्रः बृहस्पतिः शं विष्णु गुरुक्रमः
शङ्ग इन्द्रः बृहस्पतिः शङ्ग विष्णुरुक्रमः
नमो ब्रह्मणे नमो देवायुः
नमो ब्रह्मणे नमो देवायुः
प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मसि
त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मोऽसि
त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि
प्रीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
प्रीतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि
तद्माम् अवतु तद्वक्त्रम् अवतु
तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु
अवतु माम् अवतु वक्त्रम्
अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृण्वां देवा
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः
वशेम अक्षवीययोत्रा
भद्रं पश्येमो अक्षवीययुत्राः
स्थिरैरङ्गै तुष्टुवांशतनूभिः
स्थिरयङ्गै तुष्टुवांसतनूभिः
वशेम देवहितं यथायु
वशेम देवहितं यथायुः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
और सकल की दुनिया ध्यान करो।